Clause combination presented by Benedictus P. Twijatmoko, Sanata Dharma University, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. As we know, system functional grammar is different from any other grammar in that it has three levels of analysis, namely the ideational metafunction, interpersonal metafunction, and textual metafunction. In the three metafunctions, the units of analysis are clauses. We can see in this example, in the additional metafunction, John wrote the letter yesterday. We can identify the transitive process of the clause. That is the material process. In the clause, John shouldn't accept the gift. We can identify the interpersonal metafunction, namely from the modality and polarity. The clause uses should and not from the polarity. In the textual metafunction, in the clause, never will I do such a silly thing again, we can identify in the theme and the rhyme. The theme here is the mark theme, never. Never is the mark theme. It's a mark theme because it's put in the beginning of a sentence, in which it's usually in the middle or after the subject. So once again, the unit of analysis in system functional grammar is a clause. A clause in a normal occurrence, however, does not usually only occur single clauses, but it occurs with other clauses and form clause complex. A clause often occurs with another clause and form a clause complex. We have a sentence like Mary studied in Japan and Bob was in England, in which we have two clauses. Mary studied in Japan and Bob was in England. John didn't come to the meeting because he was sick. Here we also have two clauses. John didn't come to the meeting because he was sick. This is a clause complex. I believe Cindy can solve the problem. You have I believe and Cindy can solve the problem. So we can, another example, the book with Julian is really useful for my paper. The clauses here are, the book is really useful for my paper and with Julian. So this is also a clause complex. So a clause complex is two or more clauses connected with a subordinate or coordinate conjunction. There is a typo here. A clause complex is two or more clauses connected with a subordinate or coordinate conjunction. The clause complex, or the clauses in a clause complex, display several kinds of relation. So here we are going to talk about clause relation. Clause occur together in two dimensions, namely the taxis dimension on the dependency dimension. Here the two clauses are interdependent. One clause is dependent on the other clause. And the second is the logico-semantic relation, in which we have the expansion or projection. A clause is the expansion or projection from the other clause. The taxis dimension can be differentiated into parathesis and hypothesis. A parathesis relation is the relation of two clauses in which one initiates and the other continues. So one comes first and the other continues. The order is fixed. It's like he started smoking and coughed. So the smoking and cough cannot be interchanged. the cough here happens because of the smoking, and therefore the order is usually displayed with the mark with the number 1 and 2. Smoking is first and cough is 2. Another example, they got married and had a baby soon. So they got married is the first and had a baby is the second. So smoking initiates and coughing follows. Marrying is initiates and having a baby is follows. The coughing follows the smoking, and the having of the baby follows the marriage. That's fixed. And if the order is changed, the meaning will be different. We cannot say, for example, he coughed and started smoking. That's no. The clause has a different meaning than from he started smoking and coughed. The other text dimension is the hypothesis dimension. Here, a hypothesis is the relation between a dependent element and its dominant, the element on which it is dependent. So the dependent element depends on the dominant. That's a definition by Halliday and Matheson. When he left, everybody just kept silent. When he left is the dependent element, and everybody just kept silent is the dominant element. Here, usually the symbol for the dependent is beta and the dominant is alpha. So when he left is beta and everybody just kept silent. Another example, Lydia was absent because her daughter was sick. Lydia was absent. The dependent element is because her daughter was sick, and the dominant element was Lydia was absent. Here, the order is alpha and beta. So the order of clauses in a hypothetical relation is flexible. We can have alpha and beta, or we can also have beta and alpha. The second dimension of clause relation in complex clause, a clause complex, is the logical-semantic relation. Here we have two kinds of relation. The first is expansion, and the second is projection. The expansion, we have primary and secondary clauses, primary and secondary, and the secondary clause expands the primary. It expands like in the following sentence. And Mary didn't answer. She just kept silent. So she just kept silent expands Mary didn't answer. The Minister of Health gave a press conference on COVID-19, which was really late. So, which was really late expands the first clause. The Minister of Health gave a press conference. The second is projection. We have the secondary clause is projected from the primary clause. So the secondary clause is projected from the primary clause, and it appears like in these clauses. John believed he could pass the test. So he could pass the test is projected from belief. Tom believed. And Jane said she was innocent. She was innocent was projected from Jane said. So here we have two clauses and one is projected from the other. The expansion relation falls into three kinds, namely elaboration, extension, and enhancement. The elaboration occurs in which one clause gives details, comments, or examples on the other. Here is the example. Mary fell on the floor. She was really exhausted. So she was really exhausted gave details on why Mary she fall on the floor. It's more or less the same. Mary fall on the floor. She was really exhausted. It's more or less that she was really exhausted and she fell on the floor. She fell on the floor because she was really exhausted. And you have Bobby left the meeting early, which we couldn't understand. So Bobby left the meeting is the primary clause, and the secondary clause is which we couldn't understand. So it gives comment on the first clause. The second kind of expansion is extension. In extension, one clause expands beyond the other, beyond the first clause. So, for example, Linda is absent, but she has promised to help us. So, it's not about being absent anymore, but it's about something is beyond her being absent. This is different from the elaboration. In if you have, in the first example, she was really exhausted. Is a detail on falling on the floor, and which you could understand give detailed information about the leaving the meeting early. Linda is absent, but she has promised to help us. So the second clause here and the second expands why she's absent. I mean, no, it's not why extend the state of being absent. Another example, some students were absent while some were busy with their assignment. Here, while some were busy with their assignments extends the fact that some students were absent or extends the first clause. It's still about being absent. The connection is very close. That's different from the third kind of expansion, namely the enhancement. In the enhancement relation, one clause expands another by providing some circumstantial information. So here we have many students were absent because it rained heavily. The connection between because it rained heavily and many students were absent too far. It is far because raining and being absent are not always a single and to single connection. It's different from the previous examples in which we have the extension. Linda is absent, but she has promised to help us. The connection is very close. The other example, or another example of enhancement is I will help you if you like. So this one is you like is enhancing, it's modifying uh, my willingness or the first person's willingness to help you. And then from the discussions of the three kinds of expansion, namely elaboration, extension, and enhancement, we can see the nature of the three kinds of expansion. The first is the elaborating. In elaborating, the meaning of the second clause or secondary clause is more or less similar, or it gives details on the first clause. The second is extending. It's add something. The second clause or the secondary clause adds something to the first or to the primary clause. It's still relevant. In the enhancing, in the third kind of relation, the information is multiplied. The connection is too far away between willing to help and being absent and raining heavily. Now, with the discussions of the two types of dimension of cross relation, we can come to the nature. Yes, we can come to the second type of logico-semantic relation, namely the projection. We have locution. Locution in a locution relation, one clause is the product of a verbal process. We have like he said that he was happy. that he was happy is the result of sad. It's a product of sad. So as we know, there are six kinds of processes in the additional meta function, and verbal process is one of the processes. And here, that he was happy is the product of the verbal process of saying. He asked me, "What do you think about the topic?" Yeah, what do you think of the topic is the product of the verbal process me. The second kind of projection is the idea. Here we have a clause in which is a product of a mental process. So the idea relation is relation of a clause in a clause, and the other clause is a clause which shows a mental process. We have a clause like we know that he is honest. So that is honest is the product of the mental process. It's the knowledge we know. We know. So that is honest is the idea. It's a projection of knowing. It's projected from know. They believe you are innocent. They believe you are innocent. Your innocent here is also the product of the mental process belief. So now we come to the basic types of clause complex. We with the two dimensions, the taxes and logico-semantic relation, we can figure out, we can display or spell out the types of clause complex. We have on the left in the first column, you have the expansion and projections. These are the types of relation. And then on the second column, you have the types of relation. You have the elaboration, extension, and enhancement, which belongs to the expansion. And you have the locution and idea, which belongs to the projection. And then the relation can be paratactic or hypothetic. In the paratactic relation, we have he was sick. He was sick. He didn't go anywhere. There was a typing mistake here. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't go anywhere is connected to he was sick. It's an elaboration uh, of her being sick. He was absent, which was not common for him. So here we have the connector, the conjunction, which mark the hypothetic relation. It was absent, which was not common. It's a detail. It's a comment on the first clause. Extension, we have it's expanded a little. The secondary clause is an extension of the primary clause. He was at work. His wife was shopping. So his wife was shopping is not connected directly with the work, but it's an extension of he was at work. He was at work while she went shopping. That's the parenthetic relation with while as a marker. The enhancement relation appears like, and he didn't do anything, so he only kept silent. So he only it's a parenthetic relation with the enhancement. So he only kept silent because he didn't know anything. He only kept silent because he didn't do anything. We have the marker because he didn't know anything. And then the projection, you have locution. Rita said, "I didn't know anything." So this is a verbal process. She said she forgot about it. That's a hypothetic relation. And then the idea, he thought to himself, "I'll hide." It's not said, it's just a thought. And he thought he was excluded. Well, that's all about the clause complex. Thank you very much. Good luck.